Sports Scene, Hampton Road's premier interview show with Greg Bicouvaris, each Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11.
And you look at that, 4-4 at home, which is just average, 4-3-1 on the road. I mean, you're not going to win any games like that. They were not the same team after they beat the Packers, yet the Packers were a totally different team.
Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic and listen weekly as Greg interviews distinguished guests with excellent commentary and insight. Sports Scene, Saturdays at 10 a.m. on the Lighthouse 100.1 FM. From Chesapeake, Virginia, the Lighthouse 100.1 presents Sports Scene. Sports Scene features local, regional, and nationally acclaimed guests and excellent interviews. Follow Sports Scene on Twitter @GregBic. Now here is Greg Bicouvaris.
Sports Scene presented by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com. Greg Bicouvaris along with Andrew. Glad you're with us. Sports Scene midweek online, Saturday on the radio and WPMH AM 1010, 100.1 FM, and TuneIn.com by typing WPMH in the search bar. Tell your friends about Sports Scene. Twitter @GregBic, and you can see the rest of my Twitter handles on GJBTV.com. Thank you to our military. Guest lineup presented by Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville. Phone line presented by the Aberdeen Barn in Virginia Beach. GJBTV.com. ODU football is struggling. Redskins are having a difficult season. Congratulations to the Washington Nationals and their World Series. High school football on NNPSTV.com. Great interviews, excellent guests, business segments, highlights, commentary. What tees me off? Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. We love our regulars, tourists who listen online and on the radio. Stay tuned.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to GJBTV.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. I want to thank our good friends at CP Shuckers, locals tradition, Virginia Beach on Shore Drive, Pacific Avenue. People love their delicious food, great appetizers, steak bites, all the games on TV as well. CP Shuckers, like them on Facebook. Go by and see Matt, Mark, and Chef Leon. It's a pleasure to welcome a former Red Zebra broadcaster, Kevin Sheehan, now in the Team 980, been in the DC, DMV market for years. We've had him on Sports Scene several times. Welcome back, Kevin.
What's up, Greg? How you doing?
Very good, my friend. Tell the people here, because we were all involved in this a little bit. They always thought that Dan Snyder just owned the Redskins and that's it. But as an entrepreneur, he was very involved with radio stations, and that's how I met you when you came down here in Rigo years ago. And, of course, Red Zebra dissolved here first in 2013, then it dissolved in Richmond, then, of course, ultimately it dissolved in D.C. But tell us your experience with Red Zebra and that Snyder was more than just a Redskins football owner.
Yeah, I mean, wow. I mean, they launched, Snyder, launched Red Zebra Communications back in 2006, bought a bunch of stations in D.C., and Rigo and I were the first local show on Red Zebra's station in D.C., and a couple of years later, he went ahead and bought 980, which was the competitor, and I had come from 980. So it was like 2 years without 980. Then they bought 980 and a couple of more stations. And the bottom line is he probably shouldn't have gotten into the radio business because they spent, a lot of money on stations and probably didn't see the return ultimately. But I enjoyed working for it. It's funny because I've been asked over the years, going back to 2006, I mean, does Dan Snyder get involved in the radio stations like he does his football team? The truth of the matter is, I don't think he ever stepped foot into any of the radio stations that Red Zebra purchased. I could be wrong. I can say this. He never stepped foot into the stations that I worked for, while we were there. And not once were we ever called or told, hey, you can't say that, or you can't be critical of the team. That never happened. And we were certainly critical of the team because, as you know, doing what you do and what I do, if you're sitting there, with a team that's, 2-7, and you tell everybody that it's all well, you'll have no audience. It's a format where you got to be honest and you got to talk about how you really feel. And it was never an issue with them owning us. We were never muzzled. We were never influenced by them. And I'm sure we could have been had they chosen to. Some of us probably would have said, we'll move on to something else if it's going to be, rah-rah Redskin radio, which it never really was. There was the perception, and some of our competitors would make it out to be that the station was that, but it never was. It was always, regular sports talk radio.
Yeah, the 6 years that I worked there, we had a multitask a lot, on-air sales, everything in Virginia Beach. We were here from 7 to 13, as you well know, and then Richmond and D.C. But the only time I ever see Snyder is, as you know, in the TV booth, because the radio booth used to be right next to us. We would see him right through the glass window. We can see his reactions during the course of a game. The only time I ever met him was face-to-face, and I've seen him for decades, was when he came during a preseason football game in the booth briefly against the Bengals 2 years ago, and he's never, that I know of, been in the booth as long as I've been in that booth. So, like you said, he's very reclusive, very private, and a lot of people don't understand, he was in his 30s when he bought the team. Most men don't even mature till they're 45, so I got to give him a little bit of benefit of the doubt there.
Yeah, well, most men probably don't, but I mean, I think all of us, obviously the former Redskins that were on the station over the years, whether it was Riggo initially, Doc, and Brian, they knew Cooley, they knew Dan really well. But those of us that were just, yackers on the radio, Zabin, me, Scott Jackson, Al Galdi, Tommy Lavero, who was my partner for 8 years, Andy Poland, none of us ever spent any time with him. I think the only time most of us probably ever saw him or had even a brief conversation with him was, occasionally during Super Bowl week on Radio Row, he would stop by, our spot on Radio Row with 3 or 4 people and say hello, and that would be it. But yeah, it was, I can honestly say that there was never any of the stuff you see with the football team was never our experience at the radio station.
Moving on to football before we talk about the Nationals, the Redskins 1-5. That was a very bland win over the Dolphins recently, just kind of in the last few seconds. And really, I don't understand why the Dolphins went for 2 when they had the momentum of playing at home, I guess. But regardless, the Redskins got that much-needed win. Who's in a worse situation right now, the Bengals or the Redskins?
Wow. The Redskins are in a pretty bad spot, Greg. This is... we've had all of these rock bottom moments over the years, and we're at another one right now. They're in a bad spot. Of course, they're the last ones to figure it out per usual. They're so detached from reality. I still think there are people in that organization, Dan, Bruce, and others, that think that they're going to beat the 49ers this week, and it's going to be the start, that the win over Miami was the start of like a big run back into contention in a division that all of a sudden looks pretty bad. It's what it's always been. It's really, really weak at the top. It's not a well-run organization. It's not a smarter organization. It tends to be very much sort of lacking in self-awareness. It can't really attract high-quality people anymore to the organization. It used to be that money would solve all, and I think they're past that point now. It's not very promising. The NFL is designed for even the worst of organizations to occasionally, hit that inside straight and go 9-7 or 10-6 and make the playoffs. And the Redskins have had those moments here and there over the years. But I think that, most people understand now, after 20 years of the same thing, that they're probably never going to be a sustained winner. You know, you can get lucky like the Ursays did with Peyton Manning. You know, the Colts were a terrible organization, and they got lucky at the top of the draft and got, you know, an all-time historic Hall of Fame quarterback that essentially changed their path, changed their fate. And so the Redskins, you know, could stumble into that situation. Maybe they have with Dwayne Haskins. Who knows? But if it's left to just them without sort of getting lucky, I think we've been seeing for 20 years what it's going to continue to be. It's unfortunate, but they've really run much of the fan base off. This fan base is eroded to the point where, you know, the attendance is a joke. You know, you see mostly opponents' fans at the stadium, and the television ratings are half what they used to be.
Yeah, it's no longer an event like it used to be. Talking to Kevin Sheehan from Team 980 up in the DMV. Glad you're with us at Greg Bick on Twitter. We'll get all of that from Kevin in just a moment. But you made a point, I think, on the radio recently to Scott Jackson about how bad the Colts were before they went to Indianapolis. I don't think it's that bad for the Redskins, but maybe one step above and not moving to another city. I don't think that'll ever happen. But, you know, I'm sure the Colts fans probably can relate from the early 80s when Arch Sleester was the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, remember this, too, that they were able to attract Bill Polian. Like, they were able to attract a first-rate football man, you know, to run that organization. And then they also got, you know, fortunate enough to get the number one pick the year that Peyton Manning was available. And that was, you know, that's luck. You know, the Redskins haven't been in that position where they've had a number one pick, and they certainly haven't struck gold on the draft at any point at the quarterback position. But you know, you wonder now whether or not they could. First of all, you'd have to have almost an epiphany from the owner, right? You'd have to have an admission of, hey, you know what? It's been me. We've been the problem. And I think what you saw with Jay Gruden and the reaction to Jay Gruden last week is they're continuing to do what they always do. It's always somebody else's fault. You know, it was Jay's fault. It was Scott McCloughan's fault. It was Mike Shanahan and Kyle Shanahan's fault. You know, it's always somebody else. And I think there's a real sense around the league that the high quality people that are, you know, going to be available to be a GM or to be a head coach, the Redskins aren't going to be the destination for them. They would be a last resort, you know, for people. And I think almost we saw that with the hiring of Jay Gruden.
Yeah.
You know, is that, you know, they didn't have the top choice even in 2014. And so that makes it harder. But that would assume that even they would, you know, run Bruce out of town, and Dan would say, fine, I'm going to get a real football guy. I'm going to give him total autonomy, contractual autonomy, get out of the way, and hopefully it'll work out. You know, we've never really haven't seen that moment. And when he's done that, it's been with people who really weren't capable of doing it.
You're exactly right, because you look at the time that Gruden was there, Bruce Allen was very, very few times did he ever speak to the media unless he had to. His press conference recently was very vain. He looked uncomfortable. He looked like he didn't want to be there. Somebody asked him about Snyder, and he pretty much gave an answer like, well, he's not here, that type thing. And it just seemed like he doesn't like to be front and center, and he put Jay in very awkward moments where normally a Jerry Jones or somebody else like that would have spoken. Gruden was put in very awkward situations, and I think it seems like most of the fans wanted Allen to go, not Gruden, but his brother's the former governor and his dad's the former coach.
Yeah, there's no doubt that Bruce, you know, and this may be why he's hanging on, because he's become almost public enemy number one for what's left of the fan base. And people, you know, they certainly haven't forgotten about Dan, obviously. But, you know, he's taken the bullets, and, you know, it's just a bad combination. You know, Bruce has said multiple times, you know, you get judged on your record. Well, you know, his record is 60, 90, and 1, you know, since he's been here. It's horrible. And it's not, you know, the thing that I've told many people over the years that aren't as familiar as, you know, your listeners and you are to the Redskins situation, it's not just that they've lost, Greg, over the years. It's that they've conducted themselves in such an off-putting way more times than not. And I think that, you know, with a fan base that wasn't just rabid and passionate and loyal, but, there was an intelligence to the fan base for a long period of time. And I think that their intelligence has been insulted so many times over and over again that, they're not a lovable loser. It's not the Chicago Cubs of many, many years. There's nothing lovable about this franchise. And I think that's as much, that's been as much their problem as the losing has been. Probably not as much, because you'd put up with arrogance, you'd put up with off-putting if they were winning big. We all would, but it's just sort of added to the dreadful situation when it comes to their record.
Because this could be a long 10 weeks, Kevin. I mean, football's a once a week thing, not like a Nationals or a Caps time where they play 2 or 3 times or 4 times or 5 times in a week. This can really be a dreadful fourth quarter of 2019 because as much as the Nationals have done and the Caps in the past, it's still, like you've always said, a Redskins town. What's the pecking order now? I know somebody asked earlier about the popularity. I think there's more football fans generally than hockey. Baseball is still very popular, but it's still behind football. And basketball, the Wizards haven't won since the 70s. So obviously, Martinez has evolved because earlier in the year he looked like he was more lost than the Redskins were.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, you're asking me on the day following the first baseball team since 1933 in this town to advance to the World Series, and you're talking about a town that didn't have baseball for 34 years.
Yeah.
Look, I talked about this earlier in the week on the show. Over the weekend, the Nats had a Game 2 in St. Louis in the National League Championship Series, and it did a local 8.5 television rating. The next day, the Redskins played arguably one of the worst, going in least anticipated regular season games in recent memory, 2 winless teams, and the Redskins game did a 14.5 locally. Yeah. So, yes, when people, will say, after the Caps won the Cup or now that the Nats, could be on the verge of winning the World Series, DC's a baseball town or DC's a hockey town. I think most of us that really understand the truth know that what everybody else is vying for is number 2. And it's always been a Redskins town, a football town. Now, with that said, the Redskins' 14 television rating on Sunday just 5 years ago would have been a 25, and 10 years ago would have been a 35.
Yeah.
So the fan base has eroded significantly. There are people that have completely checked out as Redskin fans, but still, yes, you're right that it's. When we talk about the other teams in town, we're talking about a fraction of the audience that still is interested, follows, watches, Redskin games. But I do think what the Nats are doing here really has made them the clear-cut number 2 in town. If the Wizards ever became a legitimate contender in June, in late May and June, basketball in this city, it's the greatest high school basketball area, certainly one of the top 2 or 3 in America. It has 2 powerhouse college basketball programs who have both won national championships. And trust me, over the years at times, when Maryland's had big games, that sometimes is the toughest ticket in town to get. If Maryland, going back to when Maryland had Duke or Carolina, and now in the Big Ten, if they've got a big game against Michigan State, that can be the toughest ticket, of the year at times when they're really good. But no, it's still the Redskins, and the question is if they ever got back to being competitive again, would all the people that have checked out, would they come back? Probably a lot of them would, because the NFL in general is still king almost everywhere.
Kevin, before we let you go, I got to ask you this. Even though the Nationals are in the World Series the week of October 21st, guess what? The Redskins play the Vikings on the road, and I guarantee the first 4 days of your sports talk and a lot of talk around the DMV will be about the Redskins facing their old quarterback Cousins, who's all of a sudden playing very hot football right now.
Yeah, that's been interesting to watch. It's funny because the people were ripping Kirk a few weeks ago, thinking that Diggs and Thielen wanted to get away from Kirk. When the stories really came out a few days later, Diggs and Thielen were really upset with the coaching and with the play calling more than they were with Cousins. They wanted to let Cousins throw the football. They wanted to get back to being balanced. They were running their, against the Bears and the Packers. They were basically running Dalvin Cook against a brick wall, 90% of the time. And now that they're back to being balanced, they're actually a pretty good team. People can say what they want about Cousins. I still think it's one of the bigger mistakes the Redskins have made in years. They had a chance to sign him to a deal that would have looked incredibly favorable, team favorable, and they passed on that. And then when they decided they didn't want him, they should have traded him. Kyle would have gladly given up a first-rounder in 2017 for Cousins, and instead they got the fourth-round compensatory pick. Another sort of sign of just how petty at times, the organization has been, and just lacking in vision. They had a chance to trade the dude for a first-round pick, and they're going through the same thing with Trent Williams right now. It's like it's so petty, it's ridiculous. They could have traded him, I think, at least once, during the summer for a pretty handsome package in return. But, yeah, you said it. The next 10 weeks are going to be painful because they just barely beat the football team more than any other in recent memory in the NFL that is openly trying to lose.
And the last thing, they play the former coordinator this weekend, whose dad was the coach, and they play their former quarterback. And the Vikings were a lot closer to making the postseason last year than the Redskins were. And last thing, a lot of people don't seem to be sold on Haskins. He seems a little aloof, a little I got this, a little arrogant. Your thoughts so far on his demeanor in general?
I don't know that it's that. There's no question that the Griffin situation was about entitlement from the owner, about a young kid who just, was insufferable to deal with two coaching staffs. I've not heard that about Dwayne. In fact, Cooley, who I talked to a lot and just talked to him a little while ago, says he's a really good kid. And other people have said the same things. Now, with that said, the football people knew the night of the draft that he was a project, that he shouldn't be a top 15 pick in this draft, and they made their positions very clear to Dan and Bruce, but Dan and Bruce decided they were going to do what they wanted to do. That was a complete disconnect on draft night, which, they would not. I think the football people had more of a second-round grade on Haskins, but, Dan had a first-round grade, a top half of the draft grade on Haskins. And what you got now is you got a kid that it's going to take some time. I personally have no idea why they're not playing him with this season over. You got to learn something about him over the last 10 weeks of the season, because next year's draft is loaded with, potential big-time quarterback talent. So, but again, it's dysfunctional, and he was picked in a dysfunctional setting where football people didn't want it and the owner did, and now you've got a situation where you've got two coaches, Gruden and now even Callahan, saying, yeah, he's just not ready. We can't put him out there yet.
Yeah, who would have thought in the days of Sonny and Riggo, Larry Brown, and the Hogs would have come down to this? Kevin, finally give us a plug, how people can hear your show online in your social media on Twitter.
Yeah, I'm on 7 to 10 a.m. on 980 in D.C., the Team 980 in D.C. You can, get the podcast of the show at theteam980.com and download the Team 980 app. And I've also got a podcast that I do every day that my former partner, Tom Lavero, joins me on a couple of days a week, and Chris Cooley comes on usually one day a week as well. And you can get that podcast wherever you get a podcast, Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, all of those places. And it's just thekevinsheehanshow.com.
Kevin, thanks a lot. I'd like to get you on again and talk about your Maryland Terrapins, because they've had a helter-skelter year as well in football so far. So,
it's going to be a good basketball season, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's a good one.
Absolutely. Kevin, all the best. Thank you so much for your time, your talent, and treasure, everything you do in the DMV. Thank you, my friend.
Thanks, Greg.
Talk to you soon.
Appreciate it.
All right. Kevin Sheehan right there from the Team 980 joining us right here on Sports Scene, right here on WPMH AM and FM. Stay tuned.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. Interact with Sports Scene on Twitter at Greg Bick. Email bicogb@hotmail.com. Now back to Greg Bicouvaris in the Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com studios. It's now time for Greg's Highlights, presented by Hampton Roads OnlineMall.com.
All right, highlights, gjbtv.com, hrsmhof.com, hamptonroadsonlinemall.com, gjbtv.com. Click the YouTube link on the homepage for great archive shows, audio, video, commercials, and much more. Question of the day presented by Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News to our esteemed producer, Andrew. Andrew, do you like the whole time change, fall back, and spring forward?
You know, I was thinking about this the other day, and I just don't think I care anymore, honestly. I mean, it used to be that you had to change all the clocks, and you had to make sure that everybody knew that the time was changing, that appointments would be missed, schedules would be thrown off. Now, just all of our clocks are digital. We all sync at the same moment, and I don't know, the change in terms of when it gets dark and when it gets light, it doesn't affect me enough to really care all that much anymore. So maybe that's an argument for also getting rid of it, that it doesn't necessarily affect us as a culture anymore. I don't know, but frankly, I don't know that I'm really going to notice it all that much. I don't think it's going to affect me significantly. Very
good. I kind of feel the same way. I kind of like the daylight longer, but other than that, it really doesn't matter too much. Our good friends at 1-888-33-DEX. Call them today, 1-888-33-DEX for all your deck needs. The Wood Guys, they'll take care of your decks today in Hampton Roads. And our good friends at Sakura in Chesapeake at 1437 Sam's Drive. Go by and see Jasmine and the friendly staff for some great Japanese food. And her other restaurant, Oh Yummy Sushi, in Virginia Beach on Great Neck Road. Two great locations. Stay tuned.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. You are listening to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris. Now, back to Greg.
Greg Bicouvaris back with you here on Sports Scene, at Greg Bick on Twitter. It's a pleasure to always talk to Anthony Checchio from 757 Sports Collectibles. Anthony, how are you?
Greg, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on again. I always appreciate being able to talk on air with you, so look forward to today.
Very nice. Talk about, as far as your anniversary, how many years, when did you start at 757 Sports Collectibles?
So it's our 4-year anniversary on November 1st, so we're basically right at 4 years. It's been great. I love the location, right in the Lynn Haven Convenience Center. It's at the intersection of Lynn Haven Parkway and Virginia Beach Boulevard. A lot of visibility to Virginia Beach Boulevard. See it when you drive by, and we're right next to Eagles Cheesesteaks, so we get a ton of traffic from them.
And, of course, we archive this on YouTube, folks. For those listening on the radio, Saturday morning from 10 to 11, just type in Anthony, Checchio, and you'll see it right there on YouTube and be able to hear the interview anytime on demand. All right, what's in store right now? Of course, it's football season, heavy NFL, college football, and congratulations to the Nationals being in the World Series, regardless whether they win or lose.
Yeah, for sure. We are about probably, I'd say, almost 90% football right now in the store. Mostly NFL selection of a lot of larger college teams, you know, the local teams also, Virginia Tech, Old Dominion, James Madison. Big selection of signed and unsigned collectibles, apparel, novelties, a little bit of everything. And then if we don't have it in store, we've got about 1 million product catalog that we can order just about anything you want as long as it's officially licensed.
Very nice. And, of course, does it really go by what team is popular right now as far as winning? Because usually the Steelers are usually in first place. They're having a really tough year. Then you look at teams like the Redskins, really a dismal year. Those are two of your more popular teams. But then again, you got some surprises like the 49ers that are doing very well.
Yeah, so the funny thing in this area, I would say it does go a lot by how the standings are looking. NFC East is always very popular, especially the teams that are in first and second. I always try to root for the teams to stay nice and close together, so everybody's still in it by Christmas time. But then past there, right now, I mean, obviously a lot of Mahomes, since he's been lighting it up for 2 years now. Lamar Jackson was very popular when the season started. He cooled off a little bit, but we're still selling a lot of his jerseys. San Francisco's got a big fan base. I think it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago when they were pretty good. We had a large, fan base coming in and buying their stuff, so I expect a lot this year with how good they've looked early on.
Very nice. And, of course, talking to Anthony Checchio, 757 Sports Collectibles. His phone number is 340-4016. Of course, Anthony, talk about any social media. Your website is 757sc, like southerncal.com.
Right, we are on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'd say Facebook is the most updated social media. I've been trying to get a little more tech-savvy with the Instagram and the stories, and it's kind of like Snapchat, I guess, but, that stuff's maybe I'm a little past my time on that stuff. Twitter, we do have a lot of updates going with new products that we've just put on our website. So if you follow any of the three, you'll get a nice feel for what's going on, what's new. We always recommend getting on our email list and on our text message list also, so we can send you promotions, coupons, which athletes coming to the store next, stuff like that.
Phone number 340-4016. The address is 2686 Virginia Beach Boulevard. Very, very convenient across from RK Chevrolet. We're talking to the founder, Anthony Checchio. And, of course, the World Series, the Nationals, first time as a franchise in a long, long time. That has to help a little bit as well, even though baseball season is winding down.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes because, sadly the Nats have kind of let everybody down in past postseasons, but they're obviously surging right now. And I think the tough thing with the Nationals around here is that, they're a fairly new franchise still. So we had a lot of people that already had their teams and are already kind of locked into their team, and you don't really, true fans don't really seem to like to switch teams. So the Nats fan base is still kind of building. Obviously, a championship would really increase that dramatically, but it does help. We've got Ryan Zimmerman from this area and then Daniel Hudson, who are both big time postseason contributors right now, so I'd love for both of them to get a World Series title and really grow the Nats fan base around here.
You're right. I think there's actually more Yankees and Mets fans in this area than there are Nationals fans, and probably more Orioles fans for that matter as well, just because they've been around longer. What about the other sports?
Other sports, like college basketball, there's a lot of UNC and Duke fans, which I think would be kind of expected. NBA kind of rotates with where all the players are, so once LeBron went to LA, that became the popular team. Before that, Cleveland was very popular. And then in hockey, it's kind of maybe, I'd say, a 3-team popularity in this area. I'd say Caps, obviously, once they won Stanley Cup, they became very popular. Penguins have had a few cups recently, and then the Rangers, I think, simply because we have a lot of, transplants from the Northeast that have come down, and, New York's just such a huge area in general as far as fan bases, so the Rangers are very popular.
How about guest speakers coming into your store, and talk about your store hours?
So during the week right now, we are closed on Sundays and Tuesdays, but that does change for the holiday season. We'll be open every day. Monday and Wednesdays 10 to 5, Thursday and Fridays 11 to 6, and then Saturday is 10 to 5. I'm in here probably 95% of the time, so if you do walk in, you'll probably see me behind the register. As far as appearances in store, we don't have anybody scheduled at the moment, but we are looking into some big names that have won Super Bowls, so always keep an eye out. We don't like to do too many small-time names anymore. We do like to do the Old Dominion players, when they're pro prospects. So we did have Travis Fulgham and Jonathan Duhart this past, I think it was in April, around Pro Day. So that was a big one because they beat Virginia Tech the previous year. So a lot of people got that type of memorabilia signed. It just gives you a nice chance to meet the guy, get a picture, get an autograph, and have a keepsake going forward.
Very good. And talk to the businessman out there, too, that's thinking about doing a startup business. You've been very successful in the several years you've been there. I guess a lot of it's organization, time management, and consistency in running a store like yours.
Yes, so those are some good points. I'd say the tough thing is the work-life balance is definitely going to be more tipped towards the work side. You're going to have to stay laser-focused because you're going to have a lot of outside people trying to either sell you something, try to get you to do this or do that. Just stick to your focus and figure out what works for you, and once you figure that out, you just got to keep doing it. I like to equate it to, in football, it's 3 yards in a cloud of dust every day, pretty much. So that's just how it is. I think that's effective. Other people will probably have different strategies, but for me, it's just kind of put your head down and plow forward. Yeah,
got to get your hands dirty, and especially for the owner, they want to see your face there. And tell us, for the first time, for a person walking into your store for the very first time for the holiday season, what they can expect and what do you recommend?
So when you walk in, you'll probably be a little overwhelmed by just all the logos and colors and options. Basically, if you have a specific team you want to find, we're very good at showing you exactly what you want to look at. We do know typically what's going to be a good gift item for the person you're looking for, as long as you give us an idea of if they like something that has a little more utility, like a cup or some socks or some apparel, or if they like something that's more collectible that they can put on their wall or just kind of decorate their office or desk. We have a little bit of everything, and then if we don't have exactly what you want in the store, like I've said before, we have a million product catalog that we can order from and get you exactly what you need. And typically we get free 2-day shipping on those type of orders. At most, it's probably going to take a week to come in, so it's very quick, and we don't make you pay any additional shipping charges for that stuff.
Anthony Checchio, 757 Sports Collectibles, all the best to you and your new family, and we will see you during the fall and the winter.
Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me. Have a great holiday.
My pleasure. 340-4016 is the phone number, 757 Sports Collectibles. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. Catch up on archived editions of Sports Scene by going to gjbtv.com and clicking the YouTube image on the homepage. Now back to Sports Scene with Greg Bicouvaris.
And welcome back to Sports Scene. I want to thank our good friends George McClain right here from the Marksman. George, how are you?
Doing well, Greg. How about yourself?
Very good. We're into October now, and explain to us before we talk about your store, hunting season, at least in Virginia, and I guess we border North Carolina and several other states too, but at least when is exactly hunting season?
Well, it depends on the type of game that you're going to start hunting, and obviously where you're hunting at. And different states and locales have different dates for that. So I don't have all those right in front of me, but if you are a hunter and you're looking for a small game, out of West Virginia, we had squirrel season was in, rabbit, this type of thing, which is a different season than say deer season. And then deer season, it depends on what you're hunting with, whether you're hunting with a rifle or hunting with a bow, or if you're using black powder versus the more modern day ammo. So all of these, depending on where you go, will have different restrictions and different license requirements. So wherever you're going to go and whatever you're going to hunt, it's incumbent upon each hunter to do their own due diligence and make sure that they're in compliance with the local laws.
Talking to George McClain from the Marksman, Greg Bicouvaris, glad you're with us at Greg Bick on Twitter. And George, let's talk about your store and, of course, what goes on in the month of October. And first of all, your longtime employee and son, BJ, has moved on. And, of course, a lot of regulars that have seen him for the last decade, I've noticed that as well.
Yeah, BJ was with me right from the start when I took over down there. So he's been with me about 9 years, and he's always enjoyed the retail side of things and the firearms side. But he's got two college degrees, and both of them are in computers. One computer programming, and then in computer networking. And that's quite a technological challenge, and he was up to the task for that. And obviously, that career will take him much farther from an income standpoint than I could be able to do that with him. Even leaving him the business, when you've got, I think right now we've got like 13 employees. And it provides us, a decent income, for the folks that's there and myself, and I'm not the highest paid guy there. My employees are. So it just makes sense. Made sense for him to make this strategic move, and so now he's working with the government, and in a very opportune time for this computer networking and security and this type of thing. So I wish him the best, and I just saw him this past weekend. We went up and spent the weekend with him. So congratulations to BJ, and then all the best for that long career ahead of him.
Right, and he's not that far apart, so it's not like he can't just drive on the weekend and see you. Talking to George McClain, and George, when you talk about the season, the weather change, as far as you mentioned hunting, I was kind of surprised you mentioned squirrel hunting. I didn't realize squirrel hunting was that popular.
Well, in some areas it's not. Squirrels don't. I guess people. You've got several different viewpoints. What your background is, what you come from, and why are you hunting to start with? When I grew up in West Virginia, we were poor, and there's all kinds of adjectives that you can put out there. You can say you're dirt poor. You can use some adjectives that I can't mention on the air, and preface that with poor. We were poor, and so a lot of times the hunting that we did was to put food on the table. And some people would think the squirrel is a rodent, and if you go back into the books far enough, it probably is. But it up there, it's game. So if you meet a true country dude from West Virginia, and if they've never had squirrel and squirrel gravy and biscuits and all that kind of stuff, then they haven't lived right. So it just really depends on what your background is. Yeah.
Talking to George McClain from the Marksman. George, and one more thing in reference to your son getting involved with computers, that his main passion. Are you surprised? I mean, look back at just 15 or 20 years ago that we'd be so dependent on our phone, our internet, and so forth, apps, computer, that we're so pretty much addicted to the computer, it seems like.
Well, surprised, I guess, if I, even 20 years ago.
Sure.
Would I be surprised to see where we are today? Probably to a point, but you use two terms there, addicted and rely upon. Mm-hmm. And those aren't necessarily synonymous terms. There certainly are people who are addicted to technology, that if the power went off, they wouldn't know how to function. Mm-hmm. And there are those of us who grew up without all that stuff that still remembers how to live without all of this things. Now, it's good to rely upon it. It allows us to be more efficient in a lot of ways. There's no getting around that. But if push comes to shove and everything with the heck in the handbasket real quick, there's some of us out there that we'd still survive. But yes, technology makes it better. No question.
The phone number for the Marksman, 757-872-4130. Open 7 days a week. And one thing that separates your store from anything else, and of course your range and so forth, is the warm greeting you get when you first walk in the door. That's so important.
Well, and that's been the thing, from the beginning. Customer service. That I tell everyone every time we have an employee meeting. The first three items on the agenda is customer service, customer service, customer service. Well, that customer service starts with that greeting as you walk into the door. Nobody wants to go into a place and not be recognized. Or I can turn that around and say, you want to walk into a place and be recognized. That you're there, that you're worth something to the owners, to the employees, that we appreciate your business, and even if you're just coming in to look, we're not a high pressure kind of a deal where if you're coming to the door, we're not going to stop pounding on you until you spend some money before you go. That's not what we're about. It's work with folks, educate them, answer their questions, make them comfortable or let them be comfortable just naturally in the environment that we provide. And then hopefully, when they get ready to, spend money for training or to come and use the range or to buy a firearm, that they remember how they were treated and they come back in and see us.
You specialize, like you said, in training, range, and firearms. What would you say for a person who's never been there before, who wants to get involved in a gun protocol to begin with?
Well, you can do a lot on the telephone, but you can do a whole lot more if you just simply stop in. And I would have them to see Catherine. A lot of the gals out there, and a lot of some of the guys. We've got male instructors. We have a female instructor, and a lot of the guys. I can wish all I want that sexism was not part of our environment, and I'm not talking just with guns and hunting, but it's just out there. So some guys, when they come in, they don't want to get paired up with a female instructor. They won't. Matter of fact, I've seen times where guys have come in and excuse me, and if all I got is the gals working up front, they'll just hang around until they see a guy and somebody that they may recognize as an instructor, and they'll ask them the question when my girls have asked, can we help you with something, or you need to know some info about something, and they just won't, for whatever reason, they won't go there. And then we've got female customers coming in, and they feel more comfortable talking with the female, and for obvious reasons, and I think that's great, which is why I've got females working there, so that both sides get the service that they want, that they're comfortable with. Mm-hmm. But it's you have to kind of tread lightly, but get them matched up. So someone is coming in that's never fired before, I'd say come in, talk to Catherine. She'll get you set up with an instructor of your choice. Or someone, after talking with you a little bit and kind of, feeling out your background and where you want to go with the training, if it's just for sport, or if you're going to work towards getting a concealed permit, or if you're ex-military but you had long gun training but didn't have handgun training. So those are kind of answers that we need to kind of pair you into the training that we're going to recommend that you take, and just talk, take a look around the area, the facility, what we have with our range, our firearms training simulator that we have, which still to this day I think we're the only civilian company that's got one for civilian use, for civilian training. The military's got it, law enforcement's got it, but I think we're the only one in the state that's got one for civilians. So that's a great asset for us to have. So that's kind of where we start with, and all the instruction is customized to the customer, because not everyone comes in is going to be starting from the square one. Some have shot before, but several that we're seeing today coming in have not ever shot before.
Mm-hmm. Something for everyone. You're open 7 days a week. You really do great customer service. Military Mondays, First Responder Friday. So really, I just walk in. It's an experience, George. It really is. It's not just walking in to any other type of store. It's an experience. When somebody makes the time to go there, they're serious to begin with for the most part.
Absolutely. They don't. This type of facility, we call it a store or a school. Typically, when you walk in, you've got something on your mind. You're just not out killing a couple of hours and say, well, I don't know what this place is, so I'll stop and check it out. Usually they'll found us looking for what we do. They found us on the internet. They got the phone number, got the address, and they've called or just simply drive in at that point. But they've got a focused mission on their mind when they come in.
George, tell us how people can get a hold of the Marksman. Of course, the phone number is 872-4130 in the Northern Denbigh section, convenient to York County and Newport News. Google the Marksman as well, off of Jefferson Avenue and Warwick Boulevard, technically both. Yeah,
we're Industrial Park Drive.
Sure.
It runs perpendicular to Jefferson and Warwick. And if you go on to find us on the internet, there is another Marksman that's on the West Coast. So, what I tell people is, put in for your search engine criteria, the Marksman in Newport News, and that'll make sure that ours comes up. Otherwise, you may get the one out on the West Coast, and well, I'm sure they're a fine company. You probably won't be doing much business with them, 3,000 miles away.
Right. At least it's no competition since it's one coast to another. Like you said, something for everyone, open 7 days a week, like the Marksman in Newport News on Facebook. George, all the best, and we'll talk to you in November.
Okay, Greg. Sounds good. You all take care, and we'll talk to you then.
Very good. My pleasure. George McClain right there from the Marksman and Newport News. Sports Scene will continue after these messages.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. What tees you off? Presented by HamptonRoadsOnlineMall.com.
It's now time for What Tees Me Off. I want to thank our good friends over at Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News. Go by and see Paul and the friendly staff. Get some great lunch and dinner 7 days a week. Great salads, great boneless traditional wings, burgers, all the games on TV. Great menu as well. 12150 Jefferson Avenue. Excellent time to watch football and all the sports right there. Phone number is 249-3999. Buffalo Wild Wings and Newport News, right by Patrick Henry Mall. Wings, beer, sports. All right, Andrew, what tees me off? A lot of things, always a fun segment, too. People putting a guilt trip on you, as in, where have you been? You haven't texted me back right away. You haven't called me back. You haven't responded to my cartoon-like text. I'm sorry, but life is busy for everybody.
Yeah, man, if I let that bother me, I would be just perpetually in a bad mood, because I'm terrible at all of that. So, yeah, people, I'm sure it upsets people, but if it bothered them, they were probably gone long ago.
Yeah, this happens to everybody. This can be very awkward, whether you're by yourself or with your family or friends. When you walk into a restaurant at lunchtime and nobody else is there.
I typically don't like to go to any restaurant when no one else is there. To me, it's a bad sign. My dad ran a restaurant, and I know that an empty restaurant is just not a good omen for the food, the staff, and anything else, really. So I don't like it being packed and crazy, but yeah, when I walk in and I'm the only one there, I'm already kind of getting red flags.
Absolutely. And of course, this doesn't involve everybody, but some people do like Saturday hours. Banks that have no Saturday hours, they're only open for 3 hours for the most part, and then they close on Saturday. It's tough sometimes for issues that come up. You need those extra 3 hours, and when they close on Saturday, that can make it inconvenient.
Yeah, in some ways, I'm sort of a traditionalist. I mean, I kind of miss the idea of people, having weekends, and sort of all of the people in our society had kind of a similar schedule and sort of a similar way of going about life. At the same time, I'm also one of those people who really appreciate, I have two banks normally that I work with, and one of them has Saturday hours, one of them doesn't, and I can tell you I really appreciate being able to go in on Saturdays sometimes.
I totally agree. Some banks do, but some banks don't. Having to resolve everything by email or text, you just can't do it, folks. It's hard to make a decisive point, and it's a lot easier to say no by text as opposed, Andrew, to in person or face-to-face or by the phone.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm a big fan of just you recognizing when you need certain forms of communications to resolve certain forms of issues, because by the same token, I really get frustrated when a simple email can answer a question, resolve an issue, and instead I've got to be on the phone for 5 minutes doing something that could have just been very quickly written out. But you're exactly right, though. When it needs to be on the phone, when it needs to be face-to-face, it's also just as frustrating. So, yeah, good communication will get you real far in this life, and that's a part of it, is knowing when and how to communicate.
We go to school to spell correctly. I get it. Texting sometimes we can put, instead of Y-O-U, just the letter U. But when you see a lot of spelling errors on emails or formal documents, that's not good either.
Formal documents, I would say yes. I'm still one of those people that in a text, depending on the situation, I still typically spell things correctly and all that sort of thing. But yeah, it is really discouraging when you see in a professional setting people who take it very casually and to write things. I mean, you'll see a story every once in a while where a contract is just got 1 point of grammar that is wrong, and it completely makes the contract null and void. I mean, so in a professional setting, yes, please spell, grammar, be professional.
Trying to get an estimate from a tree company, and they say, well, we'll take a week or two to get out there. Then they'll say, we'll take 3 or 4 weeks to get to the job. That kind of puts them out of the job.
I used a certain website recently that doesn't advertise with us, so I won't mention it, although maybe we could convince them to start.
Sure.
But I was able to get a bunch of people texting and calling me very quickly, and I got to say, all but one actually showed up, and we found a company that was able to take care of it real fast, did a great job, and again, maybe they too would like to start advertising with us. But yeah, just dealing with contractors, just a huge pain. Contractors out there, please make it a little bit easier on us folks and just do what you say you're going to do, or at least call us when you're not.
Right, I agree, Andrew. Don't say you need the check before the job and then wait 2 weeks to cash it either. That's not good business either. Andrew, we're all being bombarded. You've got kids as well, a wife, family, we all do, being bombarded by different pills for colds, stomach aches, and every ailment under the sun.
Yeah, I've always been a little bit hesitant, like even for headaches, it really has to be a horrible pain for me to even take like an ibuprofen or something like that. And I've got a family member who is really, really smart, done a lot of studying on just different types of health and just natural ways to take care of a lot of aches and pains and things like colds. So I'm becoming a believer in, hey, try and diet and exercise and do some natural stuff and save the medication for worst case scenarios.
Last thing, unresolved bills that seem to never go away. They keep on sending you statements after you've already made a payment.
Yeah, I'm very glad to say that my wife and I have remained debt-free in our marriage and our personal lives. That was just a value both of us just kind of took with us into young adulthood and have retained. So I'm very fortunate that we haven't had that experience, and I'm sorry for folks who do. I know there's some ways just never getting around it. But yeah, getting any bill in the mail, though, whether it's something you've been dealing with for a while or even just a painful expense that you weren't expecting, never any fun. Certainly tease you off.
Thank you there, Andrew, for what teased me off. Also, I want to thank our good friends at Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville, 1255 Fordham Drive in Virginia Beach. Go by and see Mike and the friendly staff 7 days a week for lunch and dinner, a little late night delivery as well. Of course, a spacious, nice dining area, excellent bar as well. Burgers, steaks, soup, salads, pasta, seafood, chicken ribs, something for everyone. Great specials, great desserts as well. Dine in or carry out at Outback Steakhouse in Kempsville in Virginia Beach. Give them a call at 523-4832 today.
When it comes to automobile service in Hampton Roads, Fink's Car Care is the destination locals have counted on for decades. Family owned and operated, they specialize in transmission service, oil changes, state inspection, radiator service, tires, alignments, and showcase Win Automotive products. Fink's does it all. Military and senior discounts are available. Like them on Facebook and visit them at 2711 Victory Boulevard in Portsmouth. For more, log on to finkscarcare.com and call 485-5555 today. Mold, trash, rodents, snakeskin, even deceased animals. No, this isn't a Halloween shopping list. It's what might be under your house, in your crawl space. Schedule a free crawl space inspection with the Crawl Space Company and find out what's in your crawl space. Call 757-394-3494 to schedule your free inspection or visit thecrawlspacecompany.net. So, do you know what's in your crawl space?
And now get back to basics with Ray Gessner here on The Lighthouse.
Hi, I'm Ray Gessner with a Step in Time Chimney Sweeps. Being Christians, the Bible says, judge not or you'll be judged. So here we are, God's chosen. Let's be nice to people. Let's not point at people and say they're going to hell. Let's not be judgmental. I'm Ray Gessner with a Step in Time Chimney Sweeps. God bless you, and you can find me at chimneysweep.com.
Thank you for listening to Sports Scene. I want to thank our great guests, Kevin Sheehan, Anthony Checchio, and George McClain. For more, log on to gjbtv.com, hit the YouTube link, and tell your friends. At Greg Bick on Twitter. Interact with me there at GREGBIC. For Andrew, I'm Greg Bicouvaris. Thanks for listening to Sports Scene on WPMH and TuneIn.com, and we'll talk to you soon.